that, we have the next guest in our Art is Everywhere week of music news, which is Graham Coxon. I'm very pleased to say. Graham is obviously the guitarist with Blur, a solo musician in his own right, soundtrack composer. If you haven't listened to his soundtrack to the Netflix show End of the World, do so. It's brilliant. And also he's an artist. He created all the covers for his own records, a fair few of Blur's stuff, and he's brilliant. I mean, aside from all those things, the paintings he does are superb. Whether he does sort of figurative paintings, abstract paintings, kind of more graphic stuff, sketchy, almost cartoony work. It's all lovely. He studied at Goldsmiths, actually, which is the acclaimed art school in London, which is where he met Damon and Alex and then formed Blur. And that sort of art school thing has always been part of Blur's psychology, I think, both kind of musically and in the experimentation that they have, and their visuals as well. In fact, don't forget Julian Opie's portrait of Graham Coxon, which was used on their greatest hits in 2000. It resides in the National Gallery in London, no less, in the National Portrait Gallery. So anyway, we spoke to him early this morning. It was just a total pleasure. So here's part one of our chat, looking at the very start of Graham's artistic career. When did you first realise that you kind of had an enthusiasm for like art? Were you like one of those 5-year-olds who just wouldn't let go of the crayons?
I suppose I was. All evidence of my early work has been destroyed, but unfortunately. But yeah, I guess I just loved drawing. In those days, there was Take Heart, and there was on the TV, and I used to watch that, and I used to sit and draw the Beatles from Beatles albums quite a lot.
That's cute.
Yeah, I used to draw the Beatles, and anything, like any kid, just drawing any crazy stuff. I just was kind of pretty good at it. You know, it was like at primary school, me and my friend Mark were the best drawers in the school, sort of thing.
Which was always quite a big deal, wasn't it? At
really
primary
big
school.
deal.
Yeah, you could draw the best.
I remember one of us, the teacher said, "Well, one of you two, would you please, draw this big?" This was the challenge of my whole junior school, and it was to draw this copy this really elaborate sort of photograph of a knight in full thing, battle
regalia.
A battle ready knight on his battle ready horse, do this in pencil, then go over it in felt tip and things like that. And I remember this because it turned out really, really, I mean, I'd love to see it now, but it turned out really, really well, and everyone was like, cool. But my friend Mark actually said, no, I think this is one for you, Graham. It would have been 8 or 9, but when I put it up on the wall, I noticed that the front foot of the horse and the back foot of the horse were not quite on the same sort of plane.
Oh no!
If the back feet were sort of like a centimetre or 2 higher than the front feet, so I was absolutely enraged with myself. Of course, self-reproach spilling over. But yeah, I mean that was just my job as a young boy was to draw and to listen to music. That was it. That was what I did.
How did you get on with when those art lessons become a bit more formal? This is how you should draw this, and this is how you use charcoal, and this is how you use acrylics, and it's
all absolutely correct.
Exactly.
Say that.
And then there's a point, if you pursue it, that you realise that however you do it is valid because you've done it. You realise that playing by the rules isn't necessarily what you're supposed to be doing. Did you have that?
I think you have to pay your dues in one way. I mean,
right.
I have a sort of a duality with this. I'm not as simple as that. There's a sort of duality with me where I think you can do what the hell you like. You can draw puerile, ridiculous stuff, or you can draw however you like, as untrained as you like, and very often get some really, really beautiful images, which is quite often what I do for my own entertainment. I've got notebooks full of insanely puerile drawings, just purely for my own entertainment. They're just silly. They're not really meant to be seen by anybody else. They just make me laugh, and that has its purpose. And that's a sort of a private therapy, almost.
Yeah.
But then I did go the sort of more taught route, and I had several revelations with my art teacher Mick Knight. Knights have been a big thing in my art progress. So this particular Mick Knight, sat me down and we drew this leather duffel bag, and he showed me where this buckle is, and behind the buckle it's dark, so the buckle will stand out, so you put that shadow in there. And I made 4 drawings, one in watercolor, one in pen and ink, one in pencil, and the other one in, oh my gosh, I can't remember the other one. Couldn't have been very good. But I remember going, good grief, I think I've got it. It was a sort of a eureka moment. And but that definitely sent me off in a sort of art school sort of. I mean, I sort of got it. The penny dropped there. And then I met Damon and his parents, and the whole idea of going to art school suddenly became a bit like, this is where I go to the dark side. Do I carry on through life being mainstream, or do I go to a life of pain and creativity? And I chose the life of pain and creativity every time. Yeah. And it's difficult, but it's worth it.
Matt Everitt.
I did my foundation in art and design. I went off to Middlesex to study art, and he went off to Goldsmith, and we were all like, he's gone to Goldsmiths. He's going to be one of the weird ones, and he's not going to do any work for a year, and then he's just going to paint his knees black, and that's going to be it. Was it really like that? Because that's what we thought. Like,
kind of. I mean, Goldsmith for me for a little while was how many Newcastle brown ales and pizzas can you eat at lunchtime?
Standard.
And then do some painting in the afternoon, perhaps. But,
perhaps.
I went from taking art extremely seriously and being kind of like the best in my class again, in my general art and design course, to Goldsmiths being surrounded by geniuses, self-proclaimed geniuses, and also people that were bloody good painters. Yeah. So I did feel, alongside just moving away from home, slightly overwhelmed, and I did some all right work. But most of it was, I remember Mark Wallinger said it was a good thing that you had Blur, wasn't it? Because I saw your painting. I think he taught at Goldsmiths, and I thought, thanks, Mark. But I didn't feel I really got going at Goldsmiths. I was still finding, because it was quite conceptual there when I was there. Damien Hirst was a third year when I was a first year, so I was going in amongst Sam Taylor-Wood and Damien Hirst and some people that were, some other people that have done extremely well. Michael Landy, that lot. I mean, they were pretty hefty.
Yeah.
Abigail Lane, they were all in that year. It was like, Jesus Christ. So I was lucky that Blur started to do well, so I could, forego that humiliation. So. Yeah, it was an amazing time. But painting and music were the only things that really ever really informed me emotionally. I formed myself completely as an emotional beast around those two things. It's all I have, and it's still the same. Is how I expressed myself and how I got, as I grew up, informed about how people feel. Because I didn't really know this stuff when I was a kid. No one was really showing me. So I had to sort of search it out. And, when you're searching how people feel in the creative world, and you're listening to Strawberry Fields Forever and Rubber Soul by the Beatles, then you get formed in a particular way, where the imagery of this stuff is pretty fantastic. So you're sort of emotionally, you're getting glued together in a very psychedelic way.
Of the stuff that you've done that's ended up on sleeves, which varies a lot. Some of it's quite graphic-y, some of it's more sort of painterly, some of it's more sketchy. What's the one that you're most fond of, or do you think kind of works the best of all of like yours or the Blur stuff?
Well, I think
or whatever?
Coffee and TV was pretty much the first. There's a bit of a random old drawing, you can see the pixels. It's pretty badly done. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it sort of ended up on that. But I suppose as a real drawing, there's sort of 13 one was quite nice, and I'd been messing around with that image. Not sure I did a particularly good job of it for that cover, but some of the drawings I made before it were quite nice. Yeah, it is tricky. I think I really like that spinning top drawing. I took a lot of time on that.
Yeah,
and I do. When I see it, not one bit of me goes, "Oh God," I think that's rather beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
And it's a kind of a Boccioni, slight futurist. But I've got a bit of a soft spot for ballet dancers, I have to admit. So it's kind of meant to be almost a futurist, but a little slightly more romantic than pure futurism. But that's what it's kind of based around, and it's a ballet dancer. I used to know a girl at art school, actually. But, I used to just, please, will you do a pirouette? Because it was, for me, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And she would just do a pirouette and go, okay, happy now? Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's lovely.
She was a friend of mine, but every now and then she'd be like, oh, my God, you need me to do a pirouette? It'd be a bit like, okay.
Oh, that's quite sweet.
But there's something absolutely lovely about someone standing there and then they just go... and they're up on the balls of their feet and they go round and there's this beautiful shape. It's like a little firework and then it's gone. It's pretty amazing.
Totally with Graham Coxon on the pirouette there.